Throughout this video, I'm going to teach you why breakups happen. I'm going to break down why breakups, separation and divorce are so common today. On a second note, I'm going to cover the 4 reasons why breakups actually happen. And then I'm going to break down the bottom line. What is the end result from learning all of this information? And how does this apply to you? Some of you watching may be single. Some of you may just be casually dating, getting to know someone. Others might be in a relationship, engaged, or even married. Now here comes questions you must ask yourself. Are breakups truly preventable? And are there cases when it's unavoidable? And the answer to both those questions is yes. And that is what we're going to uncover as we break down the 4 reasons why breakups happen. So let's start with the very first point of infraction that you must understand, which is why are breakup, separation and divorce so common today? And this is just an introduction that I've written up for you guys. In today's day and age, there is no system set up by family or society that actively teaches young men and women about the importance of marriage, of vetting, so pre-qualifying someone's values, or of preparing someone to become a spouse, to be a husband or a wife. Given the fact that most people come from single parent households, or they grew up from observing parents that settle for each other, they have a very bleak outlook on monogamy, on loyalty. This leaves the youth without moral guidance. And if you leave young people to their own lusts without giving them any moral structure, then they will seek to understand sexuality and relationships via their own experimentation. And when young teenagers, young men and women, they get curious and no one teaches them, it leads them down a world of self-indulgence, self-pleasure, masturbation. Some get involved into pornography, erotic novels, those sorts of things. And they develop fetishes, unnatural sexual desires, which keeps them enveloped by their lust, which then leads them down a path of, well, now I want to date someone. Let me see what fun I can have. Which then leads to eventually them getting their heart broken. Because if you don't know how to treat someone, or even how to make sure if they're right for you or wrong, you're most likely going to end with the latter, which ends in heartbreak, breakup, separation, pain, betrayal, shouting, arguing, fighting, all these problems and dysfunction, which are not natural and they damage people. And then this cycle multiplies, 2 breakups, 5 breakups, 10, until their hearts become cold, and then they reach a point where they just have no standards. They give up, they've settled for whoever they happen to date at the time, then they struggle to pair bond and have no idea how to give or receive love. Sadly, cultural Marxism has blurred the lines between morality and pleasure, which has done nothing but break down the nuclear family, divide men and women against each other via feminism, for example, and damage the youth via hookup culture, which is basically anti-marriage and anti-family propaganda. Just hook up and have fun, there's no consequences, which is not true. And sadly, because of these reasons stated, most men and women, ultimately, statistically, you are going to end up with the wrong spouse. And that should actually scare you if you're watching this video. This is why there are breakups, separation and divorce. Which in turn teaches the next generation to be even more fearful of marriage. They have an even lower self-esteem because they witness screwed up adults with failed relationships. And the generational knowledge gap keeps growing. This is why breakups, separation and divorce is so common today. It's not because marriage is bad or love is bad. No, there's people who have knowledge gaps, who have serious issues from their childhood or their past, or they're very dysfunctionally, emotionally speaking, they're dysfunctional, and they don't know how to communicate and be in love. They don't know how to treat someone right. So they have all these problems, all these issues that comes forth when they interact and get close to the opposite sex, and it fails. Marriage isn't to blame. You live in the Western world. You have the freedom to choose to date and marry whoever you want. 500 years ago, for the family name, you were probably forced to marry into man or woman to unite family households and stuff like that. You'd be forced to marry someone that you're not even attracted to for the family's honor. Look at what happens in the Middle East. You want to talk about you don't have rights in the West? Go live there. Go see how they treat people over there. All of these arranged marriages. And here you are in the West with freedom of choice, and you still can't choose the right woman. Or ladies, you can't choose the right man. That's not because men and women are bad. It's because you have a knowledge gap. You don't know how to distinguish between the good ones or the bad ones, so you end up with the bad ones. So it's time for you to learn. See, before you drive a car, you do your theory test. If you pass it, then you do some driving lessons, then you do your practical examination. If you pass, you're fit to drive. You want to be a lawyer, you have to do the bar. You want to be a doctor, study medicine, then do your residency. If you don't pass those requirements, you are not fit to serve in that field. But somehow when it comes to marriage, people think, well, I saw my parents have a fucked up marriage. My friends and everyone I know is screwed up. I had 3 heartbreaks. I don't know anything about dating or love. But you know what? I'm ready to marry. And then we wonder why the divorce rate's so high. Wrong. You have to prepare yourself ahead of time when you're single. Before you go to the gym, you don't just go in and do random exercises. You have a training plan. You know what you're doing. The time to prepare yourself is when you're single, not when you're already dating someone who might even be wrong with you, because then there's nothing you can do. So I want you all to understand this is why breakups happen. And running off to a foreign country ain't going to change anything, because there's good ones and bad ones of men and women alike wherever you go. You need to be more resourceful. So there are only 4 reasons why breakups happen. And that is the end of the line here. Lack of chemistry, lack of compatibility, red flags, or you have a knowledge gap. Those are the only 4 reasons why any relationship between man and woman will ever fail. Number 1, lack of chemistry. All this means a lack of genuine desire. Either she doesn't really think you're handsome, or you don't really think she's beautiful. One of you have settled. One of you feels lucky and the other one doesn't. That's a problem. It shouldn't be like that. Both of you should feel lucky. That's genuine desire, and it must be mutual. All these guys talking about, oh, but Christian, all these famous celebrities and these Tom Brady's and these Spanish football players, they're multi-millionaires. Jeff Bezos is a billionaire. And all their wives divorce them and cheat on them. And it's like, there are so many variables at play. Oftentimes, these guys marry a woman that doesn't really find them attractive. She was with them for this. Or they themselves push these women away and they treat them badly, which you don't really look into. There's always a reason. Okay? Women don't just wake up and dump a guy. A lot of men don't pre-qualify or vet a woman properly. And as they focus on their own interest level. So most guys think, as long as I think she's a 10 out of 10, I'm happy. But what does she think about you? When was the last time she said, you're really handsome, I'm lucky to be with you? She don't feel that way about you. You were the wrong woman. And no amount of money or putting in effort into your relationship or, flying her out, taking her to nice places is going to make her like you more. Nature has already taken care of Josiah. God's made that pretty clear. You know in half a second if you think a woman's beautiful or not, and so does she. So chemistry is the first reason why breakups happen. The amount of couples, and I see that a lot amongst Christians and a lot of religious people, is they have this view that sex is so bad and evil. No, sex is good between a man and a woman that love each other, right? Marriage. But they have this idea that only a man is attracted to a woman. Women aren't attracted to men. It's ridiculous. A lot of Christian women are gaslit into, you got to date that man, he's a good provider, make sure you marry him, but they don't think he's handsome. So then the guy's taking care of her financially, but there's no bond emotionally because there's no physical connection, because it's not mutual. If there's no physical attraction, you ain't bonding. That's bottom line. And it happens. So chemistry is the first reason why breakups happen. Lack of chemistry. If it's not on your end, it's on her end. A one-sided relationship like that ain't going to work. Number 2 is lack of compatibility, which in a nutshell means your life is not aligned. What is compatibility? The alignment of shared values, belief system, and lifestyle. Your faith, your politics, your culture, your heritage, language, a lot of all these things align. Why? Because when you're compatible, you can relate to each other. You can talk about deep topics. It's biblical. How can two walk together lest they agree upon? Amos chapter 3 verse 3. So if you're not aligned, if you're not equally yoked with a woman, you don't agree on the same things. You want 5 kids, she wants 0 kids. How do you compromise that? You can't. It has to be aligned. You want kids, she wants kids. You want marriage, she wants marriage. You both believe in traditional gender roles, for example, right? Okay, you're aligned. You're both conservative and traditional, whatever you call it. Perfect. You think a Muslim and, I don't know, an atheist, they're both hardcore, are going to get along and build a marriage? How is that going to work? You're living in la la land. Some of you guys want to try and fix and save her instead of finding a wife. You don't make one, you find one. And a lot of relationship problems come from this. And usually, it's like a pendulum swing. If there's not a lack of chemistry, then it's a lack of compatibility, or vice versa. Meaning, maybe you both really find each other attractive, but you're just incompatible. It doesn't mean she's a bad woman or you're a bad guy. It just means you want different things out of life. And that's fine. Some women have their reasons and they don't want kids. Maybe you do. If you settle for that, neither of you are going to be happy. If your lifestyle is completely opposite, you're a homebody, she's out partying, clubbing, you're always going to fight and argue. She's going to want to change you and you're going to want to fix her. And it's like, love is about freedom. You go there to give. Why would you want to be with someone you have to change? Oh, look at me, I really made her change. That's not the way to live. Find someone that fits into your life. A woman's supposed to fit in and be your support and your helpmate, and she fits right into you. She's your missing rib. So you need compatibility too. And when that isn't there, this is where all these fights and arguments happen. Man, she's really beautiful, but we just don't get along. There's nothing for us to talk about. That's the second reason why breakups happen. You're just not compatible. And a lot of people will say, well, opposites attract. It's like, no, moron. Excuse my French, but people get that. That's such a overused catchphrase. When people say opposites attract, what it really means is sexual polarity. Masculine is attracted to the feminine, and the feminine is attracted to the masculine. The polar opposites attract. Masculine men, our default is masculine. We're attracted to feminine women that have feminine characteristics. And women desire a man that has masculine traits. That's what creates that sexual pull towards each other. That's where opposites attract. But you still need the same values. That has to be aligned. Okay? Have you guys ever seen a very pretty woman? She's beautiful, exactly your type. You go talk to her, she opens her mouth. She's masculine, she talks like a guy, she curses like a sailor. You know, she's rough and tough, she's like a dude, she's more of a tomboy, and you're a masculine guy, that's a turn off. Right, see, that's where sexual polarity gets in. Or a girl meets a guy who's tall and handsome, and he opens his mouth and he's this soft, effeminate beta male who's too afraid to be direct and decisive. She's dried up like the Sahara Desert because you're effeminate, you're not masculine. Okay? So little things, that's sexual polarity. That's not compatibility. That's just part of genuine desire, and that's just part of the way God made it, right? So that's chemistry and that's compatibility out the way. Those are the first two reasons why breakups happen. The third reason why breakups happen is nothing to do with your values or desire, but red flags. And remember, the red flags you ignore at the beginning, oh boy, do they become the deal breakers in the end. So red flags, in a nutshell, means you ain't wife material, or gentlemen, for you guys watching, as tough as it sounds, you might not be husband material. Meaning a woman, when she dates you, she starts getting to know you, a good woman right away is going to know, this guy's, he'd be a good husband, he's a good honourable man, or she knows the opposite about you. You might have some work to do. Likewise, you might meet a woman and go, ooh, there's something wrong with her. Doesn't mean she's a bad person forever for the rest of her life. It just means right now, the red flags that there's danger, there's warning signs that there's something wrong with her. Either her behaviour is immoral, so she's not trustworthy, or she has severe internal issues due to a lot of trauma, a lot of sin, a lot of character flaws that make her incapable of giving and receiving love from you. Or number 3, there's dangerous behavioral patterns in her actions. She's lying. She's unfaithful. Okay? She's aggressive. She makes threats. She blackmails. There's a history of her mistreating men, taking advantage of them. Same thing for the ladies watching. You get with a guy and there's a pattern of him being abusive. It's a red flag. They have addictions. They have problems with alcohol, substance abuse, things of that nature. You can't commit to someone like that. That is going to lead to a breakup or a divorce down the road if that person doesn't change. Okay? That's the third reason. Pretty simple. Red flags. This person is disqualified as someone you can consider for a lifelong commitment, aka marriage. It's just not happening as it currently stands. And you don't want to wait around in your fertile years, women in your 20s, you're young, and you got your eggs. And even for you guys, you hit your mid-30s, your sperm becomes defective. Guys, use your 20s wisely. Find a good woman you can build with. Red flags are the third reason why breakups happen. And the fourth and final reason is just knowledge gap. Sometimes you're each other's type, you have the same values, so you can bond, you get along with each other because of compatibility, and then because of chemistry, it's that emotional connection between a man and a woman that are physically attracted to each other. When you put those two ingredients together, it works. And, okay, let's say there's no red flags, there's no serious issues with this person, they're safe to be around, you can trust them, great. Then the final and fourth reason why breakups happen is knowledge gap. Unawareness or lack of understanding on how to give and receive love. There is maybe nothing wrong with this woman, but maybe she's clueless. She has communication problems. She shuts down emotionally. She might shout. She might get upset and disconnect and pull back and close herself off. And you try everything and she has the emotional regulation or the emotional intelligence of a toddler. Being around a woman like that is going to make it very difficult for you to bond with her. Oftentimes, if she's not emotionally intelligent enough to appreciate you and understand you, she's not going to do her role properly, and neither can she appreciate yours, which leads to a breakdown of your needs and her needs being unfulfilled. And it ends. Same thing on the flip side. Some of you guys, this is where it hurts. You get a dream woman, she's exactly your type, and vice versa. You guys have the same values, everything aligns, you want the same things, no red flags, and then you come along and you have a knowledge gap. You don't know how to make a woman feel heard and understood. You don't know how to communicate with a woman. You don't know how to properly court and romance her. A lot of guys, they get the girl and then they get lazy. They stop doing the things they once did. They let themselves go. And because they have this lack of awareness, I've got the girl, I don't need to make an effort anymore and pour love into the relationship. Because they don't know how to give that love, what starts to happen is there are holes, there are empty pockets in the connection, and it starts to wither. She wants to make an effort, but you're not making it. And because you end up mistreating her and letting yourself go, the woman shuts down and the relationship can end. And this is when only if there's a knowledge gap and everything else is clean, you can actually make it work. But you have to fill in your knowledge gap on the relationship skills and fundamentals, which is what I teach. But besides the point, a lot of guys unknowingly, when they meet a woman and things go well, they do everything right. They court her, they romance her, they make an effort for quality time, and they really know how to communicate with her, really listen to her, open her up. They're funny, they're playful, they're masculine, they're doing everything right. But it's when they get into that long-term relationship, most guys let themselves go and they stop doing these things. And especially if you're a guy who just by default you have a knowledge gap, you might never even get to a relationship in the first place because the woman sees you're clueless. And if a woman has standards and she's feminine, she doesn't want to have to fix you or teach you how to be a man. She wants you to already know that, right? You don't want to have to teach her to be a woman, do you? She should know how to be a lady. And it's this knowledge gap shouldn't happen ever. Why? Because if you grew up in a good two-parent stable household where mum and dad love each other and there's affection and there's kindness and they treat each other well, that is what you get the blueprint from. That is how you learn to value love, trust and connection, how to communicate. Because you observe it from your parental caregivers. That is how it's meant to be in life. And because a lot of people don't have that, because mum and dad hate each other, or they settled, or the mum and dad split, most people are dysregulated emotionally, and their knowledge gap is 0 out of 100, so they don't know these things. So they're fearful. And if you didn't learn in childhood, or through your teenage years, you have to then relearn this as an adult by learning theory, and communicating and building better bonds, and really opening yourself up, not holding back and putting up all these walls. There's a lot of work to do with that. I do help a lot of guys with their knowledge gap. That's why I created my relationship communities on school. Besides the point, but this is where it gets big, the knowledge gap, which a lot of people have, and that's why they're so afraid of getting into a relationship, because subconsciously they know, I don't know how to have a relationship. No one's perfect. You have to start with what you know. But if your knowledge gap is very big, you might push away a good woman. You might lash out or behave in ways that turn her off or scare her away. And that's where it becomes bad. Guys that needy, creepy, or weird. And the girl's like, he was so handsome. And he seemed like he wanted the same things as me. What's wrong with him? And they don't even know why they've lost attraction for you emotionally. But it's because of your behavior. Because of your knowledge gap. So with that said, those are the only 4 reasons why breakups happen. And to end the video, what is the bottom line here? Well, the answer is clear. Gentlemen, if you date a woman, it goes for the ladies too if you flip it with men. If you date a woman that is immoral, has incompatible values, or does not truly desire you, there's nothing you can do to save a relationship or marriage down the road. At worst, it'll end in a breakup and you can be single, he'll find someone else. Or it could end in divorce. She'll leave your ass. Or she might settle, stay with you, stay in it for the kids. But if she has good values, but she just doesn't find you attractive, like say you're compatible, but there's a lack of chemistry. If she's loyal, she might tough it out and be faithful to you, but she'll be disconnected from you emotionally. This is why you see all these sexless marriages. That's the reason, one of the reasons why. On the other flip of the spectrum, if, let's say there is chemistry, you find each other attractive, but you just have different values, and she doesn't want the same things out of you, but you guys got married. She may be intimate with you, but the connection really isn't going to be there. Because if she feels like she's lacking something, because you guys don't have the same values, she'll seek that elsewhere. Especially if you're with a woman that's immoral, she's not going to give a damn either way. She might stay with you because for financial comfort, but she'll step out from time to time, be with another guy. And that's how this life happens. If you go down this path, that's how it happens. And this is what we see with the divorce rate in the West, up between 60 and 70% across all Western countries. I know some countries like Spain and Portugal, it's something like 92 to 95% marriages end in divorce. That's some crazy stuff. But the US, UK, countries like that, it wanes between 60s and 70%, more or less 76%, which is quite bad. So for most men and women watching, I'm sorry to say, unless you really take the time to learn about relationships and marriage and fill in your knowledge gap when you're single, that's the future that awaits most people. Because you don't know how to vet someone's values, you don't know how to screen them for red flags, you don't understand how to tell if they truly desire you, what your type is, and you don't take the compatible values seriously, and you don't know how to treat someone properly. And when you put all this information together, you're going to fail. You learn this stuff when you're single, not when you're dating someone. Because if you have a knowledge gap and you're dating someone, chances are they're not right for you. So it's going to end the way it just does, as I mentioned. So the only way you could ever make a relationship work is if there's mutual chemistry and compatibility. You and her have both learned how to give and receive love. That's it. That's the bottom line. That's how this stuff works. Because if you lack those ingredients, chemistry and compatibility, there isn't really much you can do. You can try and fill in your knowledge gap, but if she doesn't desire you or you don't have the same values, it doesn't mean anything. Nothing's going to happen if there's red flags as well. But if you have chemistry and compatibility as a baseline, you can now fill in your knowledge gap and make it work and prevent that breakup from happening. So that's what I have to say on this, gentlemen. That's been the video. Those are the 4 reasons why breakups happen. And if you'd like to learn more about breakups. I'll leave a link down below to my relationship community. I actually have a course here on breakup recovery, and which goes through not really getting an expert, because I don't teach that. I think it doesn't really work, but understanding why breakups happen, understanding why, for the guys, like different reasons why women break up with men, and how to end your relationship, how to heal if you're moving on, things like that. So if you'd like to learn more, I'll leave the link down below. You can join my community, 7-day free trial, cancel anytime. With that said, hope you all have a wonderful day. God bless all of you and your families.